Denis Kazungu, the Rwandan serial killer who hid 12 bodies in his kitchen. Think your neighbors are strange? Imagine learning the guy next door is quietly hiding bodies beneath his kitchen floor. Today, you're going to hear about one of the most horrifying crime waves Rwanda has ever seen. This is the story of Denis Kazungu, a man not born with a criminal record, but someone who somehow became a household name for all the wrong reasons. Starting in 2022, inside a humble home in Kigali, Kazungu started luring people to a rented house. What followed was a string of murders so shocking it stopped Rwandans in their tracks. 14 victims discovered buried in a kitchen pit. Most were women. The case revealed a mix of tragedy and missed red flags. A landlord ignored by police, neighbors dismissed as gossips, and close calls where 3 women somehow escaped. You'll hear how Kazungu, once a shop owner and teacher, became Rwanda's most notorious monster. You'll see where justice missed a step, and why the crime stunned a country not known for serial killers. There are details you won't believe: hidden identities, financial struggles, police doubts, and a community haunted by the memory that someone so ordinary could turn so evil. By the end, you'll understand why this case changed Rwanda forever and what lessons we can all learn about watching out for warning signs, even in our own streets. This isn't your typical true crime story. The Denis Kazungu case shattered the myth that Rwanda was immune to serial killing, raising urgent questions about trust, community responsibility, and what happens when evil creeps in through familiar doors. What makes a neighbor turn into a killer, especially one who buried bodies where food should be cooked? Today's video breaks down the chilling facts, tracing every lead, every lost chance, and every jolt of horror that came with the discovery. Let's rewind to the beginning. Denis Kazungu wasn't always notorious. Born around 1989, he started out as a motorcycle parts dealer, sometimes working as a teacher, and even once running a nursery for orphans. By 2022, after his business crashed, he'd moved to an nondescript rented house in Kicukiro, Kigali, the sort of neighborhood where everyone thinks they know each other. But quietly, Kazungu was hatching a dark secret. Neighbors noticed strange visitors coming late at night. Some swore they had fights and cries from inside, but chalked it up to disputes with sex workers. No one guessed that over months, as many as 14 people were lured in, never to live again. What was his method? Police revealed that Kazungu typically targeted women, mostly sex workers in local bars. He'd charm them, invite them home, then rob them, assault them, and finally strangle them to death. It's believed he forced victims to give up mobile money codes and emptied their accounts before murder, even trying to dissolve 2 bodies, pulling a page from infamous serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer. The horror deepened when police stumbled on the crimes by accident. In July 2023, Kazungu was briefly arrested for rape, robbery, and making threats, but was bailed for lack of evidence. But by September, he defaulted on 7 months' rent, prompting his landlord to call the police over a basic eviction. Kazungu didn't defend himself. Instead, he sobbed uncontrollably and confessed, "I killed people and buried them in the kitchen." Officers rushed to his house and found the unimaginable: a pit under the kitchen, packed with bodies, some still unidentifiable. Here's a snapshot of some of the victims. One woman, whose name has not been released, managed to flee when Kazungu tried to rape her. She later described neighbors witnessing her escape and Kazungu abandoning his pursuit as she ran out screaming. "I saw death in his eyes," she said. "I will never forget the darkness in that house." Her bravery helped alert locals to the danger, planting the seed for Kazungu's eventual capture. Among Kazungu's identified victims are Eliane Mbabazi, Clementine, and Frances, all women with families desperate for closure. The sole male victim, Eric Turasinze, was used by Kazungu for identity theft. Authorities found Kazungu using Turasinze's ID to trick others, deepening the wounds for Eric's family, who had searched for months for their missing son. At the first court hearing, a mother sobbed from the audience, begging for her daughter's remains after months of searching. Families were left with pain and public shame, knowing their loved ones vanished and society often failed to care. Many relatives say their complaints about missing family members were dismissed by authorities who saw the victims as just sex workers. Neighbors reported screams and suspicious activity, but police ignored those warnings. This compounded the tragedy. Victims' cries for help were unheard until it was too late. Two brave women who escaped Kazungu's torture testified in court, describing how they used blunt objects, shoved pens up their noses, and threatened them until they cooperated. "He hit me and said I could die any minute," one of them recounted. Their stories reveal the depth of cruelty Kazungu inflicted and the luck that some survived. Some bodies still haven't been returned to families. Others were not even discoverable after Kazungu confessed to dissolving remains. For survivors living with trauma, healing has come slow. Clinics reported a spike in PTSD, especially among women in Kicukiro, and counseling groups have opened in the wake of the crimes. Kazungu pled guilty to 14 counts of murder, rape, and aggravated robbery, appearing calm, even composed in front of judges. He said his victims were punishing him by infecting him with AIDS, a claim with no evidence. He asked the court for a private hearing, admitting, "I have committed extreme crimes and do not want my story in the media." The judge refused, noting the public rights to know. The case exposed a massive problem. How did Kazakhstan get away with murder for so long? There were at least 3 women who escaped, yet warnings to local leaders were dismissed as disputes between Kazungu and sex workers. The stigma around sex work meant police and society didn't take missing persons seriously. Most chilling, this all happened in a country where violent crime is rare. Rwanda has one of Africa's lowest homicide rates. Suddenly, everyone wondered, could this happen anywhere? Even before this arrest, Kazungu was known for being soft-spoken, well-dressed, and polite. He ran errands for neighbors. He built up a history of charity. His nursery school taught orphans until closing for lack of funds. But after 2016, as his life fell apart, he turned to cross-border liquor trade and lost 120,000 Rwandan francs to a failed business, which prosecutors say triggered depression and possibly the path to serial murder. The investigation revealed a chilling pattern. Kazungu premeditated nearly every killing. He planned his invitations, controlled victim movements, and had a routine for disposal. Prosecutors argued this was not desperation or madness, but cold calculation. Family members of victims blamed authorities for not believing missing persons reports. Kazungu's defense went for a softer sentence, arguing he'd been honest and cooperative with the investigators, expressing remorse for what he had done. He claimed to have developed cowardice, apologizing to the country and the president, saying, "If I could go back, I will not take that path," and asking, unbelievably, for a second chance. But prosecutors will not back down. They argued his regret meant nothing compared to the premeditated cruelty. The judge agreed, calling the murders an unthinkable stain on Rwandan history. Apart from the 1994 genocide, it is rare in Rwanda's history to find one person responsible for these many killings. At the climax, courtrooms filled with survivor families as Kazungu finally received his sentence. On March 8, 2024, he was handed life in prison, ordered to pay 10 million Rwandan francs in damages to multiple families, and permanently labeled Rwanda's worst serial killer. Kazungu and his lawyer tried once more to appeal, saying remorse and a good behavior deserved leniency. On July 11, 2025, the Rwandan High Court shut him down for good, citing the unthinkable harm caused and the dangerous nature of refusing public accountability. He'll never be released. Families spoke out the final hearing. Give this man a second chance, and no man is safe. This crime pushed Rwanda to revisit how police handle missing persons and raised serious questions about the protection offered to vulnerable women whose society is quick to dismiss. The tale of Denis Kazungu will haunt Rwanda for decades. It shattered innocence, exposed painful gaps in community, and police response, and showed how evil can hide in plain view, behind the kitchen door. It's a warning for every society. Don't ignore warning signs. Don't dismiss cries for help, and never assume evil won't show up close to home. Kazungu's story also showed that justice, even when late, does arrive, and that families and survivors deserve public answers, not buried secrets. Rwanda now faces new challenges in protecting its people, especially the vulnerable. The case of Denis Kazungu is a chilling lesson in vigilance, compassion, and the fight for real justice.